Welcome, gamers, to this week's episode of Last Call Gaming. We're episode 196. Today is May 24th. My name is Craig Prowse. Joining me is Mandrew Mentemare, and it's a fine, fun, fantastic day to get back behind the old office space, huh?
We're back.
Hey, we're back. Did you ever watch that movie?
I was just about to ask you that.
Dude.
I fucking love that movie.
Is that a Blumhouse movie?
I don't know.
I know it's not Disney.
No, it's definitely not. I don't know who makes it, because that movie's actually pretty dark, but I love that movie.
It does get... Oh, was that with, what is it, Professor Screw-Eye?
I thought... Is it Professor or Dr. Screw-Eye?
I think the difference is what a professor teaches and a doctor practices. That's a fun fact. If I'm right, I think that's a fun fact.
I'm looking about. It's definitely something Screw-Eye. I just don't know if it's Professor or Doctor.
Yeah, it's weird because
I think it's Professor.
With how bubbly they are, as the voices, dude. Yeah, once they get turned back into like
when they start going primal
dude,
again?
Yeah, the drawing gets way heavy and dark, and it's an awesome movie. So that's funny you say that. So if you guys haven't seen it, definitely go check out We're Back. So guys, if you are joining us today, make sure on the YouTube channel you guys like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. If you guys are interested in following us on any of our social media, make sure you check out our Linktree link, which is in the description. And if you guys are listening to the audio only version of this podcast, you can check us out on your podcast platform of choice. So before Andrew and I get going, we like to do, what are you up to? We take a second, talk about anything we've been doing, anything we've been playing, anything we've been watching. So Andrew, my friend, you got the cool shirt on. Where you been?
This is my Attila shirt. Like I said last time, I went to LA to go see Born of Osiris and Attila with some other bands. It was actually a really good time. Like, the Airbnb was great. It wasn't that far. The venue was surprisingly really good. They dropped us off in it looked like a shit warehouse on by an underpass. There's a bunch of fences with razor wire everywhere, so it looked like a bad part of town. But it was so good that literally probably from here to the camera for Attila, we were right there. And then for Born of Osiris, I was on the rail for him. So I had an amazing time, and I got the shirt and I bought.
Did you guys push your way to the front, or was it seated?
No, we pushed our way to the front. It was all standing, and then because there's a bunch of people crowd surfing. I don't know why you have people that get up there. They're 300 pounds trying to jump in, thinking people like me are gonna catch up. It's dude, it's not happening. So after I got back from that trip, I did start, as far as anything I've been watching lately, I did start the OG X-Men because I wanted to run through that before I start X-Men 97 because I haven't watched it in forever, so I don't really remember, I remember big critical moments, but not everything. So I figured, why not? I've got the time to do it, especially now that season 1 is wrapped up. And then as far as playing
how far did you get into it? How far did you finish X-Men?
No, I only watched a few episodes because
I think it's only 3 seasons.
Because I was taking a break because I had finished Far Cry already because I wasn't going to play anything before Hellblade or Paper Mario came out. I did pick up Paper Mario yesterday, so I'm ready to play that on the Switch. But then I ended up jumping back into Starfield because that big patch that came out. And remember I told you before that I got stuck and I couldn't finish one of the main factions because the guy wouldn't fucking appear.
Yeah.
And so I just dropped the whole game out even though I'd beaten whatever. I was like, alright, I'll check it one more time. I don't want to have to redo the entire faction quest. Let me just load up and see if it's here. Because now they did a big patch where it's got 60 frames, the maps are better, it runs...
The game it should have been when it launched.
Yeah, it runs insanely good now too, so... sure enough, I loaded the thing, I go right in there, and the dude's standing there. I'm like, thank God. So I went ahead and finished that, and then I finished up the other faction. And so I've always really liked any of Elder, besides maybe the main story being weaker, I've always felt like they had really good factions. So I'm glad I went back and did those two, because they actually ended up being really, really good.
Excellent.
And then I am playing something else, but I'll wait for you.
Okay, yeah, we'll dive into that. So as far as what I've been up to, watching wise, I watched The Iron Claw, which came out on December 22nd of 2023. It is now on HBO Max. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it tells the story of the Von Erich brothers as they make history in the highly competitive world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. Through tragedy and triumph, the brothers seek larger-than-life immortality on the biggest stage in sports. Now, this is something I was really, really looking forward to, and it's extremely dark. I think you were telling me that there's a Dark Side of Wrestling.
I was gonna bring that up. If you're interested in Dark Side of the Ring, they do specifically have one just on the Von Erichs.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to say it's a spoiler, but there's a whole family curse, if you want to call it that, with these guys, where a lot of hard tragedy follows them. I'd argue that it's probably one of the most horrifying stories you can really watch, maybe behind the Heart Foundation, because they also had it pretty bad. But it's really, it tugs at the heartstrings. It really focuses on family, love, tragedy. I'm glad I didn't go see it in theaters, because I cried no less than 3 times. It's got one of the most powerful endings I've ever seen in a movie. Like, you can't help but just weep yourself. And Zac Efron stars in this, and I gotta say, he is absolutely fantastic in this movie. Now, Zac Efron really isn't for everybody, but for me, I think he's becoming one of the greats with movies like The Greatest Showman and things like that. And then
his chin is huge now.
His chin is gargantuous. But then you also have Jeremy Allen White, who's from Shameless and The Bear, who also puts on a fantastic performance. So if you want to check it out, again, it's on HBO Max, and it's a great movie, but be prepared to bring the tissues.
I've been meaning to watch it.
You. Yeah, definitely check it out, because I forget. It's weird that it came out last year, or at least that far ago last year, and I'm glad it's finally out now. So as far as what I've been playing, hey, finally, I was able to finish Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is a game that came out on February 29th, 2024. Final Fantasy VII, yeah, it's not even that long ago, but it is that long ago. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a 2024 action role-playing game developed and published by Square Enix. The game is a sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake and the second in a planned trilogy of games remaking the 1997 PlayStation game Final Fantasy VII. And the game, by all means, is epic. It takes what Remake did, it expands on it. Now, you could take that as a good thing or a bad thing. The game definitely is huge in time compared to Remake, and if that's something you want to do, if it's something you want to go explore and you want to do all the side quests, then it's a 100-hour game. I think, again, I leave my console on when I go do stuff, so, but by the time I was done with it, I think I clocked in around 50 hours, and by the time I was on chapter 8 or so, maybe it was chapter 9, because I was doing a lot of side stuff, I was like, dude, I'm so far behind in this game, I just gotta gun it. And again, because it doesn't seem like it's long, but it's like, then I gotta do 9, 10, 11, because there's 14 chapters, and it definitely did take some time, but it didn't. It's an epic, and this one dives into more characters, kind of like how Remake did with Jesse, Wedge, and Biggs, where Aerith has a much bigger role than she did in the original Final Fantasy. Zack plays a much bigger part, so I'm really liking that they're introducing him, especially after Crisis Core that we played, that he's becoming a much more integral part. Some of the cool things I really liked about it is, I forget if it's been so long since I played Remake. I forget if it had chocobos. I don't think it did. Where this one, if you want to go find them in different regions to find like the green chocobo that runs up mountains and the blue one that swims, you got to do like these little side quests to capture one. And then once you capture them, you can whistle for them and they'll come to you, which was kind of cool. This game finally does have everybody in it. So Sid and Vincent do show up, but kind of like Red 13 and Remake, they're not really playable, but they are there. But Yuffie and Kate Sith actually come in and you can actually gear them up and play with them. The Golden Saucer, if anybody's played the original, is still amazing and just picked it on a much bigger scale. There's all kinds of mini games. You can get lost. I had to stop playing the games just because I'm like, okay, I have to stop. I got to start playing other stuff because there's a lot of cool stuff you can collect by beating a bunch of the games. My biggest thing, and you can call it a hiccup or good or bad, is that it is just long, man. And by the time I was done, because I've been talking about it for weeks now. I was like, all right, I got to pack it up and get going. And the end is so epic. Because Cien called me last night and he was asking me about it. He's like, how'd you like it? What do you think it's going? I'm like, dude, with how epic the ending is, I think I was telling you earlier, I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do with, I think we agreed it's Final Fantasy VII Reunion, the third one. I'm like, what do you do? Are you going to fight Sephiroth again for like a third time? So anyway, I finally beat it. It's amazing. It was fantastic. I'll see where it lands though on my Game of the Year list because I don't know if it's going to be one. But with that done, guys, Andrew and I have both been playing Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga. And if you're not familiar with it, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is a 2024 action-adventure game developed by Ninja Theory and published by Xbox Game Studios. The game serves as the sequel to Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice and is set in the 9th century Iceland, drawing inspiration from Norse mythology and culture. It just recently came out, so 2024, but it is May 21st is when it actually came out. It's essentially console-wise an Xbox exclusive. The original one came back out in 2017. So Andrew, I know we kind of split a little on what I like about it and what you maybe dislike about it. So I did want to read this, and then maybe you kind of put it in context for me if this kind of landed on it, because I was reading a bunch of articles on it, and this comes from Jessica Cogswell from GameSpot. She says, "My biggest concern, particularly after Microsoft purchased Ninja Theory, was that the next entry in the Hellblade series would aim to be one of the massive AAA experiences that are taking over the game industry, complete with a cluttered minimap, crafting, side quests, and more. That's not to say these features are inherently bad, of course. They do have their place, but to me, this felt at odds with what Hellblade did so well. I didn't want breadth. I wanted the series to maintain its depth. I wanted emotion, art storytelling, introspection, mythos, terror, and magic. In fact, I was so concerned that the studio would trade in its depth for breadth, I didn't foresee what would actually happen. Rather than expanding its systems and scope or weaving a story equal parts intimate and mystical, Senua Saga Hellblade 2 focuses on vastly improving what its predecessor already did so well: visuals and sound. Hellblade 2 is a marvel to look at. It's gorgeous, cinematic, and hyper-realistic, yet still eerie and ethereal. Its music remains extraordinary, and its sound design is primed to make your skin crawl. And yet, I cannot help but be disappointed by how pared down and shallow its story and gameplay are. While Hellblade 2 might be a sight to behold, its minimal gameplay and muddled narrative prevent it from being a game that has any meaningful impact on me." And when I was reading that, I kind of felt like, I think that's kind of where we both are on it, right? What do you think?
I was going to say that because I was thinking about it afterwards. I was like, I feel like what we were talking about it with friend of the show, Devin, that he was maybe taking what I was wanting the wrong way. I'm like, I don't want the AAA experience, but maybe just something a little more, just something just a little bit grander. And yeah, that's just how I feel. It's like you took 7 years, and I told him when I first started, I was like, it's pretty much you could be playing a remaster of the first one because it's doing the same thing, maybe even a little bit less now because I feel like I've already done it. While it is a beautiful game, and it is, I love the sound. The sound is great too, especially when you're. I think some of the best parts when you're going through like these caves and caverns and
4.
Yeah, when you're going through all that down there, I'm like, dude, this is great, and I love that, but that only gets you so far because you're just walking from piece to piece to piece to piece, and so I'm like, it's not so much a slog, it just is what it is, you know, it's a moment that comes and goes, and that's it, with no real lasting like impact. For me, the moment that really hit in there, I don't think he made it that far. But you come to like a fight that's just a little more than some of these other ones. And when you get there, I would like your opinion on it. I'm like, I wish I had a little bit more of those that felt like a little bit better.
Well, what do you mean? What does it do?
Well, when you're fighting, there's other people with you. So it's not just you, because you're actually in a village and you're trying to help people defend it.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm on my way to there right now.
So you're seeing other people, like, die, but there are people who are not dying. So, like, you're swinging and then you'll bump into someone and then they'll throw you out of the way. And so then instead of just a narrative where normally when you're fighting something, you'll kill a baddie, but then the next one jumps on your back. So you're throwing them off and then that starts the next fight. Versus this one, someone will push you down in a fucking spear will come by, and then you get up, and that's how that fight engages. So
that's the only time that game, because I gotta admit, we Andrew aren't done with it. It's only 6 chapters. It's not a long game. It's I think it's about 7 hours. Not much to go look for. I just started chapter 5. It sounds like you're, I think, halfway through it.
I think I'm almost done. I don't know what chapter it says I'm on, because I was following a guide just for collectibles, and it doesn't tell you. All I know is I have like 2 achievements left, so I'm assuming like 2 hours.
Yeah. So I would say that. Headphones, if you can't play with them, that's fine, and if you don't want to play with it the whole time, sure, but it's definitely worth checking out for at least a chapter or 2, because the sound is amazing. And I did see a lot of people are complaining that maybe it is kind of more of the same. The combat's not as great or redefined as it could be, and like I was like Andrew was saying, we were talking with Devin, it's like I don't know if it really needs it, because what I didn't like about number 1 was how like whiny she is, with how complaining she is, how much the what was it, the Fates talking to her, or the Furies talking to her. Where in this one it seems like she's a lot more mature. I'm getting a lot more better conversation.
She's stronger.
The puzzles that you were constantly doing with lining up these things to get through, I think I've only done like 3, so I think they got rid of what I think held it down. And you're doing a lot more kind of traveling puzzles, like, you know, have the orb here to open up the gate. I mean, the puzzles aren't hard by any means, but
basic.
Yeah, they're actually really basic, but I do feel like it's more like context clues of how to solve them. The biggest thing I want to say is that I do like that it's a focus playthrough. And there's a difference between something that's like playing Uncharted and it being like, oh, you're almost like playing a movie. Where for me, it's like this is like you're playing a good book, and if that makes sense, I hope that comes off correctly, because it's like, but that is not for everybody. So if you're in the mood or want to play something that, because I mean, you can call it a walking sim, sure, but I mean, but it does have combat, and it does have puzzle solving, but for me, it's like you've got to go into this thing wanting to explore this chick's madness and her psychosis and understand what she's going through, how constantly she's being talked to, and it's also based more on like every time you find the collectibles, like the shrines and things like that, it gives you this back lore and things like that. So I think you've got to be prepared for more of a story than an action adventure.
I like that, and I can agree with that. It's just I almost like there was more variety in the combat. You can almost defeat each person the same way. Dodge and then swing a couple times, dodge, swing a couple times.
Yeah, I do wish there was more graphics too. Like when you kill somebody, it seems like based on what enemy, there's like 2 or 3. I wish they could have evolved that a little more.
Wait until you get to the big one, and then you'll understand what I'm saying. Like, okay, like this encapsulates maybe not what I want for the whole game, but I wish there was more of this. And I do want to say too, and I was saying it for all you people out there crying, where were you at for Rise Son of Rome, damn it? Because that game deserved a sequel. And again, I'm not like big into the Nordic thing, so that also might be like why I'm also a little bit less on this. But I love like Rome and all that stuff. That I felt like that was almost in the same situation. People gave it shit because it was just a good looking game where all you did was really march from A to B and then do combat with maybe a little puzzle here or there.
Yeah.
And so it's in like the same vein, and then we never got another Rise.
Well,
and I loved Rise.
And I'd put it against too. There's how many games are just button smashers that people say are fantastic, yet where this game's an explorative narrative, they're like, oh, the combat's lacking. I'm like, yeah, but you can't argue that at times it's not explosive and that things kind of like you'll be fighting and something jumps on your back. Like it does. I think it does keep you on your toes, as simplistic as it may be. But there's other games that people praise that it's just smash the X button, smash the square button. It's like, okay, but what are we complaining about then? That this game focused on the story and then the gameplay, where there's other games that all the fighting is just hitting the same 2 buttons?
I think my big thing, and just where I just draw the line out for the most for me.
In my head, I was like, he's going to say draw the line.
Is just that as good as it is, whatever, that this took 7 years.
Yeah, and
God of War 2018 took 4.
And
it's a different size team, I get that.
And it is one of the most beautiful games. So, I mean, if that's what the 7 years went, it shouldn't have taken 7 years. I'll say that, because
so did Order 1886 was a beautiful game, and look what that game bombed.
Well, it's weird to think that I played that game 7 years ago, because you just played the Hellblade 1 last year, right? Or did you play earlier this year?
It might have been this year.
Yeah, it's weird to think that I played it 7 years ago. So yeah, that is interesting.
7 Senuas ago?
7 Senua's sacrifices ago. So that's kind of our thoughts on it. Perhaps next week when we beat it and we see the ending, maybe we can have more impactful insight on it. But again, it's on the Xbox Game Pass. So if you're interested in it, check it out. But do your homework first. I mean, or maybe give it the first chapter, because well, it's even hard to say too, because the first 2 chapters are kind of slow. It doesn't really kind of pick up until 3 and 4 and now 5.
When I was originally kind of really down on it, and I was like, it feels like I'm playing the same game as the first one, was just the first 2.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Because, yeah, 1 and 2, it does seem like it's kind of remembering where you're at, and then it kind of starts picking up and becoming its own thing, even though it is kind of a mirror of the first one. So, anything else you want to say on Hellblade?
I'll say, as negative as I'm talking about it, I would be remiss to say, like, go out there, play it, form your own opinion. I might not love it, but I don't hate it. I'm just being critical of... It's a game that maybe I just expected more from. And again, I don't want the AAA experience, but there's got, maybe like a 15-hour and maybe up the combat a little bit or something like that, and you could still focus on this narrative just a little more,
Yeah, and I'm going to be... Because a lot of outlets, I mean, that are praising it are giving like 8s, 9s. I don't know if anyone's giving it a 10. So I'm going to be curious to see if this thing makes it to Game of the Year on any stretch from what's out there. But I'm also curious, too, of thinking how fast, if at all, and I'm probably sure it will, it's going to be on PlayStation.
Sound design for Game of the Year, for sure.
Yeah. Do you think it'll go to PS5 by the end of the year?
I wouldn't mind so much if it did. At least, like, you gave it time to just... As long as I give it time to just
But it just goes back to the thing. It's like, this is Xbox exclusive. Gone.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Xbox. If you can keep it, I suppose. But let's not shut... was it Ninja Theory that makes them?
Yeah.
Let's not shut them down because it doesn't sell that well when, again, it's digital free only and it's on the Game Pass. So, hopefully nothing bad happens to them. So, with that down and out of the way, guys, let's move into our main story, and that is that Assassin's Creed Shadows has dropped a big trailer, which was last week. Originally, if you remember, this was codenamed Assassin's Creed Red. This is actually it's set to come out November 12th of 2024. It's actually, I was trying to look up what is this? It's the 13th game. It's the first Assassin's Creed game was released back in 2007, and the series has featured 13 main installments in total. The most recent being Assassin's Creed Mirage in 2023. Main games in the Assassin's Creed series are set in an open world and played from a third-person point of view. So there are a couple things I wanted to dive into. First, I'll just give you the outline of what the story is supposed to be. Set in 16th century Japan towards the end of the Sengoku period, the game will focus on the millennia-old struggle of the Assassin Brotherhood, who fight for peace and liberty, and the Templar Order, who desire peace through control, from the perspective of two protagonists. Now, I've heard it pronounced Naoi. Is that how you're pronouncing it? Her name? The female?
Naoi? I think so.
Okay, Naoi, a female shinobi, and I was reading it as Yusuke. How are you saying it?
I was saying Yasuke.
Yasuke. Okay, I'm going to say Yusuke because when I read it, that's just how it's going to come off in my head. An African samurai inspired by the historical figure of the same name. The two characters control differently and provide a unique gameplay style, allowing quests to be approached in multiple ways. So, before we kind of get into a lot of the controversy that's cycling it, there's no gameplay really out, so unless there's something you wanted to dive into first, I was going to say, just overall, what did you think of the trailer? I mean, it was pretty big. I think it was like 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
They always do really good trailers. I mean, it looks good, and it's something that I'd want to play, especially since I didn't get to play. The closest thing that this is really going to give it a run for its money for would be like Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, yeah, we'll get
But
that.
that's only on PlayStation, so I did not get to play that. So I'm looking forward to getting my experience. I know you'd be hard-pressed for someone like you. I was gonna ask you. I was like, what do you think compared, because you actually got to play Ghost of Tsushima?
Yeah, no, I got a whole thing coming up in when we get to the controversy
right.
circling it. So as far as the trailer goes for it,
Good trailer.
yeah, it's a good trailer. I wish they would have shown a little more of how they got to be what they are. It was kind of just like, I think he's bowing down and he raises up and he's a samurai, and then there's just a scene that kind of transitioned to her just next thing you know she's putting on like a hood. I wish it kind of showed more of like what's happening and how he's getting it. But I'm sure the next trailer we see will kind of be more of an origin, but that's kind of what was missing for me.
My big gripe, actually, out of this is that it was in English. Because when I play games like this, even when I play like Sekiro, when I play Yakuza, I played in Japanese with the subtitles. So hearing them talk in English with some kind of like forced accent completely took me out of it. And I'm like, dude,
You got to appeal to the masses.
I was like, dude, this is terrible. I was like, I don't want to hear this. I was like, I really hope that they have like a good. I've never played another Ubisoft game, so I don't know how good, or a Ubisoft game dubbed, so I don't know how good their dubs are, that I really hope it's got a good Japanese version.
Okay, yeah, I like that. So as far as the trailer goes, I don't think it's anything really to write home about. It is what it is, and it was fine. I liked it. I didn't love it. The thing I thought that was cool at the end is when she does her assassin's blade, she's able to spin it around, and she ends up with like turning it into like not a pipe but like a little dagger.
Yeah, it's like something that comes out.
So
I
I like it when they do something unique with the hidden blade. So yeah, we'll get into what you want to talk about right about now. So circling this game is a few things of controversy, and I think it's well kind of deserved. The first one is what Andrew pointed out, is the setting, because the setting is kind of let's see, is this the part I wanted to read? Yeah, so let me read this real quick just to kind of catch you up where it's at. So this comes from IGN. It says, feudal era Japan is the most requested setting in Assassin's Creed's 16-year history. That's what Mark Alexis Cote, Vice President Executive Producer of the franchise, tells me in a presentation about Codename Red. Now revealed to be officially titled Assassin's Creed Shadows, it's the game that will finally grant fans their long-held wish. It will provide a deeply detailed digital recreation of Japan in 1579, complete with its legion of samurai, shinobi, Portuguese merchants, and Jesuit missionaries. If you love this year's Jesuit? I thought I heard that one guy say Jesuit, but anyway. If you love this year's Shogun TV series, then Assassin's Creed Shadows is poised to let you bask in the world. And again, 16 years later, I think it's a little bit too late, and I think as fans, we're like, this should have been Assassin's Creed 3, 4, and again, you've been from continental U.S. where with the Revolutionary War, you've been London, France, Italy, the Caribbean, Greece, Egypt. I feel like they're finally trying to catch up of what we always always wanted them to do. When you think of assassin outside of a contemporary hitman, right? You think ninja, you think shinobi. So and this is where Andrew was exactly correct, where I'm like, there's already, I think, too stiff of competition. There's already games that filled in the gap of what we wanted. One being Ghost of Tsushima, which I'd argue is better than any Assassin's Creed. Not any, because I really like a couple of them, but like, it did a really good job of being what Assassin's Creed in Japan should have been. And you have Ghost 2 on the way. You have Rise of Ronin, which I haven't played, and I think it's coming out to some mixed reviews, but by no means is it a failure. And then, more importantly, you have Sekiro, how do you want to pronounce it? Sekiro.
I'm glad you brought that game in.
Shadows Die Twice, which is a Game of the Year contender. And then two other things I want to point out. That one Game of the Year. The year we went, right?
Yeah.
Is maybe this is something that maybe Xbox players and maybe PC players are going to love on day one, because Ghost and Rise of the Ronin are both PS5 exclusives, right? So anyone else, Xbox didn't get a game that satisfied that. But then you have Sekiro, which, even though it's not an exclusive, it's an extremely, I would call, a difficult game to master or to fall in love with. You've got to have that kind of acquired taste. So when you've already got games that, at least Ghost and Sekiro, are top tier, I mean, again, I haven't played Rise of the Ronin, it's like, now I have to have an Assassin's Creed finally in Japan, where the last game, Mirage, was a real letdown for people, because when it reinvented itself with Origins, Odyssey, and is there a third one?
No, they did Origins, Odyssey, and then they went back to the Viking.
And then Valhalla, right?
Valhalla.
So they did Valhalla, but it's like, we've already had so many of those cookie cutter Assassin's Creed that are just more of the same, and it's going to be real unfortunate unless they do something completely drastic to the story, or maybe the components of the gameplay, that it's like, I think you missed your turn. Well, do you think that's accurate, or do you think there's plenty of space for more feudal Japan set games?
It's not even the setting for me. It's just a game coming out. I did not like the last two. Mirage was not that great, and
that's fair. The last two were kind of
And I feel like Valhalla was even more of a slog. So why should I be excited for this game at all when I don't think Ubisoft has put out anything great lately? I mean, you had me back it, because everyone had Assassin's Creed fatigue. You had, I would say, arguably me. I think you two back in with Origins and with Odyssey, which turned out to be some of our favorites.
Yeah.
But then you went back to Valhalla, which wasn't good for me, and that game for me was an absolute slog. I did not enjoy it, but I know we both didn't care for Mirage.
Yeah, because when it reinvented itself, I mean, I think Origins was one of the highest selling, or at least Odyssey was one of the highest selling Assassin's Creed, but because it's like, cool, you're getting out of what you were stuck in, and then everyone was kind of like hyped, like, oh yeah, let's do Mirage, and it wasn't a bad game, but it's like there was nothing different about it, and the story was, I can't even remember really what it was even about. The only thing I'm curious about is like, will this story be awesome? And I really hope it is. So,
I mean, I hope so.
So with that being said, I think the next thing that has the biggest controversy with it is that they're showing, when they revealed who your main protagonist is, or at least one of them, is going to be an African-American fellow. So here's something, I think this is by the time, and it says, the latest Assassin's Creed game in the beloved franchise, based loosely on historical events, called Assassin's Creed Shadows, has generated controversy among fans for one of its leading characters, a real-life figure named Yasuki, who was a samurai believed to have been of African origin. Ubisoft, the creator of Assassin's Creed, released a trailer for the new game Wednesday. The game, which will be released November 15, is set in feudal Japan and features two lead characters, Yasuki and Naoi. While Naoi is a fictional character, her father is a real-life historical figure and shinobi of the Fujibayasashi Nagato. I'm going to butcher that. Yasuki is a historical figure believed to have been of African origin, who was a samurai during the 16th century. He is widely considered to be the first ever foreigner to be granted warrior status in Japan, and was the inspiration for the Netflix anime series Yasuki, so the self-named. So, yeah, a lot of people were looking at this and going, why are you changing this? Why aren't you having an Asian protagonist in Asia? But I mean, you and I were talking off camera, was like, I think it's kind of cool that they're finally grounding somebody in real facts. And I thought that's something that they've kind of been missing for a while, like, something that's actually tied to real historical events. And I like that she, even though she's not real, her family is, her clan is real. So a lot of people were kind of getting upset about, this black person being in this game. But as far as I could tell, and this goes back in the mid 16th century enslaved Africans arrived in Japan alongside Europeans. Yusuke, an African man, possibly from the Mozambique, arrived in Japan in the late 16th century alongside the Jesuit missionary Alessandro Valagnano. I'm butchering 1,000 names today, but so that is controversial that we're circling it. But I don't know. Once you realize that it's a real person, what's the problem? I guess the problem is what the blending in.
I did see like a meme that like it's like a bunch of like, I think it was like a bunch of like Asian people and then the one black dude, and it's like,
oh yeah, dude.
It's like, be careful guys, the assassin could be any one of us. But that doesn't that to me wouldn't make sense anyways, because you're always wearing the fucking robe anyways that stands out when you're trying to blend in the crowd.
Or the mask. I mean, you got something that's really only covering your eyes and your mouth, which would be shadowed anyway. So and the helmet. So I mean there's two sides to this. There are lots of people out there that are just racist and don't want to see like a black main character, whatever. And obviously that's shitty. But there are some people who have like genuine points, or like even like that's their culture. Like, why are we not getting more represented in something more of our life? Because as far as I know with this person, again, but you still have the girl.
A made up character. If you're gonna pick a real character. And here's the argument that I was kind of thinking. I was like, if you're going to pick a real character, why wouldn't you pick somebody who actually did something for the country? Like when you played Like a Dragon Ishin, I forgot about that where they take the Yakuza characters or whatever, you're leading this revolution of real things with real people that really happened, that really made an impact on the country. This guy, I think, from what I've looked at and from what I've seen, there's not a lot known about him. He was a retainer of Nobunaga, but he was only there for like a year, maybe a year and a half, and then that's it. And even once Nobunaga was like dead, or after whatever happened with him, he just gave up and was like captured. And I mean, nobody knows really too much else. So as far as I know, he, from what it seems like,
he was an assassin.
He was he was just there more as like at that time for them, because they didn't really see too many African people. Like, hey, here's almost like a show horse as my retainer, whatever. I kept him among me. But it's like, what did you really do for the country? Whereas you could have chosen somebody else that, I don't know, obviously, a lot about this time period, but I'm sure there's lots of other people who fucking did something great for the country.
Yeah.
The George Washington of fucking Japan.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I can see it. And I do see where people, I don't want to say the majority of Japanese people feel slighted that they don't have, a main protagonist that's going to be Japanese, but... I thought it was interesting that they picked picked a black person to be the main protagonist, which it's just odd to me that there's this much controversy about it. Where again, there is still a Japanese female protagonist, whether or not she's realistic. It's cool that at least her roots are grounded. So, but again, just pointing out that that's one of the things that are circling around this game, and will it hurt sales?
I'd say that's the biggest thing circling about this game right now.
Oh, you think? Because I'm going to drop you with something else.
Oh, all right.
Okay, because this just came out like the end of yesterday, and since we've been talking about it, I didn't even know about this, so I was looking up stories. Apparently now, Ubisoft appears to confirm Assassin's Creed Shadows protagonists Yusuke and Noe are LGBTQ+.
I saw that, but I took it. I didn't read it, and I would have to.
I'll read it to you right now. I want you to know what you think.
I'm saying I'd have to go through the story, but when I saw this, just first thoughts, I thought of it almost like when you play like Origins or not Origins, Odyssey. Like you can choose to be with a girl, you can choose to be with a guy, but there's tons of games that I played in Japan where like guys are into guys, and I think even Nobunaga had like a male, someone like that like maybe. Obviously, I don't think it was like husband or whatever, but you can fool around with whatever and still be with women too. No, so I don't know.
No, that stuff was definitely around back there. But this came out on, I think that Park Place is the one that had it, and it just says Assassin's Creed Shadows developer Ubisoft appeared to confirm that the game's two main protagonists, Yusuke and Naoe, are LGBTQ plus characters. In a blog post on the company's website published on May 15th, the company declared Naoe and Yusuke's disparate personalities also lead them to have different relationships and rapport with other characters, and they don't always feel the same way about people, nor do people always feel the same way about them. Next, they discuss romance options. Romantically, they will also attract and be attracted to different types of people. Through the pair, players will get to experience a multitude of relationships. And yeah, that's what I was going to say too. It's like there's tons of games, Mass Effect, Dragon Age Origins, all these games where you can pick what you want to be and it makes it. But I think what people are, I guess, getting more angry about is, but if you're going to ground these people, then now you're changing history in a way that because I mean there's no evidence to say this guy was, but there's also, I would argue, there's not enough evidence to say he wasn't.
Well, that's because there's not enough known about him to
but
be
again,
the main character in the first place.
then why put a stamp on this to say they are, when in other games it's the choice of the player.
Right.
But now you're flat out saying that that's going to happen. And again, I can see the backlash, because it's like, why are you making it's kind of like the Disney thing. It's like, okay, they can be gay or whatever, but it's like you don't got to brand it that way. And you're already seeing a backlash where their main YouTube trailer that happened already has a 644,000 downvoted click on it. And I'm not saying that 644,000 people will or won't buy it, but it's like, why make that and risk the chance of having that when you could just as easily have said, oh yeah, there'll be options for you if you wish to explore it. But instead of going out of their way to make sure you're saying it. But then again, did I read anything that pointed out that says they are that? Because that's the thing I'm not getting. It's like,
I took it like Odyssey.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we can't argue that that's not controversy. And the fact that will this or will this not hurt the game now that you have a black protagonist that a lot of people don't see why, and then now branding them both as LGBTQ plus people.
I don't think it'll hurt the game. I think people are just going to play it anyways. I can't imagine someone wouldn't be like, oh my god, like I'm gonna make my stand right here with my dollar on this game. And that's gonna be funny too, because the last two games weren't that great. That, let's say this one does not do well too. Let's just say it's not that great of a game. Are people gonna blame it? Oh, it just didn't sell because of those versus it just not being a good game?
I would say that this will hurt it. I don't know by how much. I don't think it's going to be huge margins, but it's like, I think just doing this, because it's one thing to have a diverse cast, right? This is the first time there's not a straight white male, not a straight white male, but a pure white male leading it. So you have diversity. You have a Asian woman and a black man. So it's like, but then to diversify for diversify's sake, it's like, why brand it that way? Why would you just add that little bit more that might rub some people the wrong way? When again, you can have that choice in the game and let the player do it, but not go, hey, they are this out the box.
You're not a white male in 3, you're Native American.
What, Connor?
Yeah.
With a half white father. Or with a white father, he's half white.
Oh yeah, I guess so. I don't know why. Maybe for some reason I was picturing him.
Well, I mean, Origins obviously. Origins obviously. You're
just
you're
Egyptian,
black, but
yeah.
it's just like it's already diverse. So it's like just to give them this extra label. It's like, why go out of your way? And again, I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying I could see. My question is it good to do that? It's like, well, just why would you go out of your way to maybe shoot yourself in the foot when you don't have to?
I feel like the only reason they maybe even announce that is to seem like, hey, we're
queer.
we're plus friendly to try to get maybe those purchases that they thought were going to lose. Now you're going to have this other group of people come in that maybe not.
Yeah, but I'd argue there's more cis white men than LGBTQ players. So it's like, why try to attract us? I would argue maybe a smaller group and maybe turn off a larger group when you could have just not said it at all. I don't know. It's interesting, and I guess maybe because this came out a day ago, so maybe in a couple days we'll see if there's any more of a backlash. But I just wanted to bring up the controversy, and I think those are 3 important things that are coming out. 1, the main protagonist. 2, going out of your way to brand them, and then the setting too little too late. Is there anything else you want to point out about it?
I mean, I'll be playing it.
Day one, baby. You know I'm playing it. So, guys, if you have any extra thoughts about it, leave them down below. So, with that down out of the way, guys, let's move into our main story number 2, and that is that Square Enix is going after a multiple platform strategy. Final Fantasy maker Square Enix will aggressively pursue a multi-platform strategy after profits tumble. So,
all I had to do was wait them out.
You knew it was coming.
And it's coming, baby.
Let's see. Square Enix has announced a significant company reboot amid tumbling profits. Reporting its, and this is a big one, so let me get through it, Andrew, and then you can run wild with it. Reporting its financial performance for the financial year ending March 31st, 2024, sales in the digital entertainment segment, which includes video games, rose by 2.6%, but profit fell by 15.8%. This despite the sale of Final Fantasy XVI, Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, Foam Masters, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, specifically on HD games, the subcategory Square Enix uses to encompass all the above games. The company saw a significant operating loss of 8.1 billion yen, which is approximately $51.9 million Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth both launched as PS5 exclusives, and while Square Enix has announced a sales figure for Final Fantasy 16, it has yet to do so for Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, the second game in the company's trilogy of Final Fantasy 7 remakes. In its financial report, all Square Enix would say is it has suffered from an incomplete journey to better profitability in HD game development, and that it had launched many titles, but some failed to live up to profit expectations, especially outsourced titles and some AAA titles. It seems like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, at least, is included in that. In response to the tumbling profits, Square Enix announced what it calls Square Enix Reboots and Awakens, a 3-year plan for rebooting for long-term growth. This involves a rethink across all parts of the business, but the highlight is a shift to a multi-platform strategy. Square Enix said it will aggressively pursue a multi-platform strategy that includes Nintendo platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, and PCs. Note the wording here of Nintendo platforms, with Nintendo set to announce its Switch successor console before April 2025. As part of its multi-platform push, Square Enix said it will build an environment where more customers can enjoy our titles in regards to major franchises and AAA titles, including catalog titles. The suggestion in all this and in mainline Final Fantasy games will ditch PlayStation exclusivity going forward, although Square Enix has yet to announce specifics beyond Final Fantasy 16's upcoming launch on PC. Now, there's more to read on it, and that comes to us from IGN, so if you want to read the rest of the article, I did put it in the link of the description. I just want to point out two things, and Andrew, you can go off on it, is what do you mean redo your multi-platform strategy? You've always done that until recently. Square was on Nintendo. Final Fantasy 15 was on the Xbox. It's like you stopped doing that because Sony gave you money and you became... It's like you can't argue when your game goes on Game Pass and doesn't make sales. It's like, okay, well, that's where you put it. You can't argue that Square Enix is doing bad when you only put it on PlayStation. So that was kind of my thoughts, and we can dive into it, but let me know what you think.
I was going to say, before it even gets to there, people will complain like, oh, well, Xbox is in the market. I'm like, well, yeah, because we didn't get anything for the longest time, and the first thing we got was 13, 13.2, and 13.3, which I don't think set the world on fire. I personally didn't like them, and I enjoyed 15, but why would anyone want to get into this? The same reason I'm sure maybe Crisis Core didn't do the best. Why the hell would you do that when we weren't at the time getting remake, even though you and me played it?
Oh yeah, played the shit out
of it. You know what? We waited it out and we're glad.
It's just, I just don't understand how it's like, oh, we're going to redo this strategy. It's like you always had it. It's you stopped doing it. So I don't want to hear it's like, you know what? We're rethinking. We're going to rebrand. We're going to start putting it on all the systems. It's like, isn't that what you did before you stopped doing it? So I just don't get it. It's backwards thinking.
I wonder, and you can tell too, because I mean the writing was kind of on the walls, because with every game that comes out, we crush these numbers, we crush these numbers, we crush these numbers. I haven't heard a thing about Final Fantasy VII crushing any sort of numbers besides the first week. Other than that, I haven't heard nothing about it as far as it setting the world on fire, and I think it didn't even sell like that, or as well as the first one in like Japan, from what some of the reports were saying. So I think that's insane.
Well, yeah, it's one of these things too where they're like, oh, it didn't sell as much as we wanted it to. It's like, yeah, because you put it on one system. Like, if you look at, because I pulled up what Final Fantasy, I think it was Final Fantasy 15 did, if I can get it to pull up. It says Final Fantasy 15, which sold on Xbox as well as PlayStation and PC. Final Fantasy 15 has finally hit the sales goal set by its development team over 5 years ago, crossing the 10 million lifetime sales milestone. The news was revealed earlier today by the official Japanese Twitter account for Final Fantasy 15. This sales milestone now means that Final Fantasy 15 is the third best-selling game in the entire Final Fantasy franchise, trailing only to Final Fantasy X with 10.5 million copies sold, and the original Final Fantasy 7 with 13.1 million on a game I'd argue barely anyone played.
I was going to say, and I kind of want to jump in on that.
Yeah.
A game that had development troubles, they had to pull out and do all kinds of whatever with the story that some people said was mid. I enjoyed it. It's not my top 5 for Final Fantasies, but I really liked it.
Yeah, that most people think doesn't have the most memorable cast. That
canceled the DLC.
Right, so it's like, oh, but you know what happens when you sell on everything? You get more money. So it's like, this doesn't make any sense.
I wonder too, because I was, and it's funny now, and hopefully too, this makes my Hail Mary for those E3 predictions look like it might be coming a little bit better than later. That if they would put it, so let's say 7 is going to come to Xbox now. If maybe within the next 6, 7, however many months. I think someone pointed out too, I'd seen a trailer the other day that if you go and look on like the trailers now, it doesn't just say like exclusive on there anymore. I think they had to update it and it says exclusive until it actually said like 5/29
Good.
on there. So that was something that's updated, that if on Xbox maybe they would do 1 and 2 as a package and then get 3 whenever everyone else gets 3, or if maybe they have to honor that deal, wait for 3. I wonder if they had a way out of that deal, like, hey, this, you gave us this amount of money, but it's not covering for the losses now, that it's not as good a deal for us, so this is our way out of that deal we made with you. We'll give you back whatever, and we'll put 1 and 2 wherever, and then 3 will just be a blanket release.
Yeah, maybe. It's just one of those, it's just like, we want to make more money. It's like, anyone that was on Sony was going to buy your games anyway. So it's like, all you did was throttle your income source. So it's like, what bugs me is just this whole plan of going, we're going to redo this platform. Like, what does that mean? You're just going to do what you always did once upon a time? I
just kind of hate the argument where people are like, oh, that it's not going to sell on Xbox anyways. It's like, you're telling me that at least 1 million, 2 million, even 500,000, that is not worth putting it there for that kind of money. It can't cost you that much in development to port from one to another that it doesn't even cover the porting costs.
Yeah, so I don't know. To me, Square Enix finally got, the dust out of their ears, and they're just kind of like, oh, we're hearing people. You want to play it on other platforms? Geez, we want to make more money? Oh, here, let's try that. Hey, and it's going to take us 3 years to do this. It's like, unless 3 years means, because I don't know what they were thinking just saddling up with Sony, and I get it. I understand that they were kind of wanted, because they sold off a lot of assets, and they kind of went more back to their Japanese roots, which is perfectly fine. But that doesn't mean just stick with Sony. And again, when they're like, oh, we have plans for Nintendo, it's like, what do you mean? Octopath Traveler came out on the Switch exclusively for a while. So it's like, you already were doing business with Nintendo. I don't get it.
And it's just you're going to take one of the greatest games of all time that everybody, absolutely, doesn't matter what console you have, absolutely everybody's heard of, and make it exclusive when that's something that's just a license to print money. Like, let's say Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 4 remake. What if Capcom had just, oh, let's make this exclusive? In what fucking world do you do that with something that's a license to print money? Maybe if it was like, I don't know, Final Fantasy 8 or something like that. Yeah,
biggest game in the world. We'll keep it here.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that those were system sellers either. I mean, maybe Remake, but Rebirth by no means is a PS5 seller. You know what people maybe would have bought? An Xbox, because now Final Fantasy VII's on there. I can see that even helping out Xbox sales. Final Fantasy's on there now? Cool, because it's not going to Game Pass.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Square Enix, hey, get your head out of your ass. So, thanks for finally coming to play ball. So, with that down out of the way, guys, let's move into questions of the week. Now, guys, if you want to leave a question that Andrew and I can answer on the show, you can do so a couple of ways. You can leave it at the bottom of the YouTube section in the comments. I can grab it there. You can email us at lastcallproductions@gmail.com, or you can find me on social media at Craig Paralis, and I can take it there. Now, we're just going to do one question today because we're running a tad long today, but this question comes from Chris Trejo, and he writes, what is your favorite fight scene of all time? I've always enjoyed watching Achilles and Troy. Where do you boys land? Now,
I watch that scene all the time.
I'm under the assumption you're talking about when Achilles storms the beach, right? Not just when he kills, because that's the scene I'm thinking of.
I was thinking of just him versus Hector.
Yeah, I guess any scene for that, but one of the things I kind of wanted to just pick apart, I think, was I wanted to make sure we were separating battles from a fight, because there's a difference between, like, Gandalf the White showing up and, blinding the orcs and then running down and, like a big battle that's like an army or something like that is one thing.
I chose 1 to 2-on-2 combat.
Yeah, I'm looking at fights more. I mean, that's how you would take the word fight, right? It's more like a small group of people.
No more than 5 people.
Well, I'll give it 11. So, I love it. Do you want to go first with yours, or do you want me to give mine?
I can go first.
Okay.
For mine, I actually chose a movie called Kung Fu Hustle, and it's that's one of those movies. It's a martial arts comedy, and I remember seeing it as a kid. I've seen it a few times, and I really love it. I remember falling in love with it when I was younger. I feel like that's kind of really what got me into like watching a lot of like martial arts stuff, and pretty much in the movie, there's people that have, or it's almost like born into the world. I believe, because I don't think they learn it, but people are like the masters of certain fighting styles. So like, I think the ultimate one is like the Buddhist trigram. There's this other dude who it's like something to do with the frog. But my I forget exactly what it is because he bloats because he's really strong. I think he's called the Beast, but then he bloats up like a frog and like launches himself at him and stuff. And there's like a wife who can do this.
Oh.
It's called Iron Rings. This dude has these iron rings on his arms, and there's another guy who has these spears, and that's what he's the master of. And they fight this blind duo that they have like really sharp nails, and they're good at like hand-to-hand combat. But then they sit down. I don't know what the instrument's called, but it's a Japanese instrument that's like the length of this table.
Pluck.
And yeah, and you play it and you pluck it. And when they pluck it, it shoots like these invisible sound wave, almost like swords and like hits that hit them, and it's like really hard for them to see. So like as they're doing it, there's like a whole bunch of swords coming out, like cutting these dudes up as they're trying to fight them with the rings and stuff. I don't think you had ever seen it, but you watched that scene.
Yeah,
when I sent it to you.
Yeah, Andrew, because I'm like, hey man, can you send it to me while I'm working on the rest of this? And it blew my mind because I thought, what was the movie?
Kung Pao End of the Fist.
Yeah, I thought he was talking about Kung Pao End of the Fist. I'm like, wow, that's Andrew's favorite fight scene because I don't remember seeing the movie, but the trailer, I'm like, that movie looked really dumb, and I was like, this scene better be awesome. So when I started playing it, and you guys are on YouTube, you're probably seeing it, and I was like, oh, this is a whole different movie. So now, yeah, I'm gonna find out what it's on. I'm sure it's got to be streaming somewhere, and I'm definitely gonna check that out. So.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it looked awesome. So my favorite, it's not favorite. Catch Me on the Right Day. We watched so many fighting scenes back to back that it's hard. But when Andrew sent me that one, because again, sometimes you got to be reminded of other stuff before you can think of one. So when you said that, it reminded me of Ip Man. And when Ip Man, pick any of them, Tyson, whatever. But the one I chose was when he fights the 10 black belts, which is a hard scene. Now, Ip Man, if you guys aren't familiar with him, if I'm not mistaken, he's Bruce Lee's original master who taught him. So from Wushu came him, and he's the one that taught, it's more about defense and using your energy or your opponent's energy and weight against them. And in this scene, man, I don't know how much you remember it, but he's fighting all these dudes, and there's just a point. I remember this guy goes to kick him. He kicks out his leg, makes him do the splits, and just busts his femur, dude, and his leg just goes straight up. And this, I read one of the comments on YouTube, and it's like, Ip Man's folding clothes with people's bodies still. I started dying, but watching him fight when he does just the multiple punches and just how he maneuvers and how he just keeps a straight face on it the whole time. It's the best. But again, though, pick any of the Ip Mans, and in every one of those, you're going to find some amazing fight scenes. But I did want to throw out, and I don't know if you wrote down any honorable mentions.
I do have one.
Okay, so I wanted to say, and they're all kind of different. I wanted to say Matrix 2 when Neo fights Mr. Smith, and they all gang up on him. Just because that monologue or that dialogue they have between them was fantastic. I had The Princess Bride with Inigo Montoya and Dread Pirate Roberts. Just how fan-soul and kind of silly that one is. But I am not left-handed. I'm not left-handed either. And then last but not least, I had Happy Gilmore versus Bob Barker. Is one of the funniest, most legendary fight scenes of all time. But again, there's 1,000 more out there.
My go-to is always Matrix 1 Neo, the first time he fights Mr. Smith in the subway when he's kindly starting to believe, and then he does that ridiculous, and he's like, and chokes. But my other one that's always one of my favorite that I watch is actually Scorpion versus Johnny Cage in the first Mortal Kombat movie. More specifically when he drags him to his realm or hell, because he's beating the shit out of Johnny Cage. At one point, because the camera zooms in on his face, he knocks him to the ground, and he goes to get up, and you just see his foot smash his head back on the ground. Or even more specifically, too, later on in that movie, when Liu Kang fights Reptile, that's a super dope-ass fight, when he turns into, a human, and he's, throwing him across. He does this weird, throw him, over shoulders thing.
All kinds of goodness.
Either way, the first Mortal Kombat movie, goated.
I think I'm gonna, it's inspired me to make a fight scene power hour, so... Maybe I'll put one of those together.
I'd watch it.
Nice. So, guys, that is the end of this episode. Make sure you guys leave down below what your favorite fight scenes or multiple fight scenes are. So, guys, that is the end of episode 196. Join us next time for episode 197. So, until next time, guys, I'm Craig Perales. That's Mandra Montemare. Cheers.
We'll see you out there.